Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the bakery on the corner, the car wash across the street, or even the little pizza shop you'd been eating at for years was never really about food or soap. It was a front, a money machine for the Mafia. But here's the question. How did they turn tiny, ordinary businesses into empires worth millions without ever getting caught? Because what you're about to hear are not just scams. These were genius-level tricks, executed so perfectly that even the FBI admitted, we never saw it coming. And the most shocking part? Some of these scams are still happening today. The Mafia was never only about guns, gambling, or intimidation. Their true power came from money, money that looked clean, legitimate, untouchable. But dirty cash from drugs, extortion, and black market deals couldn't just sit in a suitcase forever. They needed to transform it, polish it, make it look like it came from grandma's pizza shop instead of the back room of a nightclub. So they invented scams. Each one was a carefully designed illusion, and the first one turned them into financial masterminds overnight. It started with something deceptively simple: money laundering. Picture a small diner reporting 10 times more sales than it actually had. On paper, it looked like the restaurant was booming. In reality, the extra cash came from heroin, loan sharking, or protection rackets. But why did the Mafia prefer cash-only businesses? Because cash leaves no paper trail, no receipts, no digital footprint, no way to prove what was real and what was fake. If the bar sold 50 beers but reported 500, who could ever prove otherwise? Some of these businesses claimed to make more money on paper than the biggest chains in America, and yet the FBI couldn't touch them. But this was only the warm-up. The next scam didn't just hide money, it stole it straight from the government itself. Now imagine dozens of tiny pizza parlors scattered across America. Family-owned, cheap slices, the smell of melted cheese filling the air. On the surface, nothing suspicious. But behind the counter, they weren't serving pepperoni, they were serving heroin. This was the infamous pizza connection. Drugs from Sicily would land in New York, disappear into pizzerias, and reappear as millions in pizza sales. By the time law enforcement caught on, the Mafia had already moved over $1 billion. But here's the chilling part. The operation might never have been exposed if not for one careless mistake. One young delivery boy noticed something strange. His boss kept ordering impossible amounts of flour and cheese, far more than the shop could ever use. He whispered this to the wrong person, and soon the FBI connected the dots. Shipments labeled as tomatoes were packed with heroin bricks. But the twist? Even when agents raided one pizza shop, the network was so big, so spread out, that cutting off one branch didn't kill the tree. The Mafia's money river kept flowing. But if drugs and restaurants weren't shocking enough, their next scam was pure brilliance, stealing millions from Wall Street itself. The Mafia knew one thing: where there's greed, there's opportunity. And in the 1970s, Wall Street was wide open. Mobsters infiltrated the stock market, running pump-and-dump schemes before the term even existed. They would hype up worthless stocks, drive prices through the roof with fake buying, then dump everything in one night, leaving investors broke while the Mafia walked away rich. But here's the question. How did they manage to pull this off without bankers noticing? The answer was terrifying. They had men on the inside. Corrupt brokers, accountants, even union leaders laundering pension funds into the scam. Imagine your retirement savings disappearing overnight, not because of bad luck, but because the Mafia stole it in plain sight. And if you thought Wall Street was bad, the construction industry was worse. The Mafia controlled unions so tightly that no skyscraper, no bridge, no highway was built without their blessing. They set up a scam known as the Concrete Club. Contractors were forced to buy overpriced concrete from Mafia-approved companies. Anyone who refused risked their business or their life. The trick was so effective that by the 1980s, nearly every major New York construction project had Mafia money in it. And here's the craziest part. Even city officials knew, but turning against the mob meant political suicide. The Mafia was printing millions from thin air, all because they controlled who poured the concrete under America's tallest buildings. But if this sounds unstoppable, wait until you hear the scam that made the government itself their biggest customer. It was called the gasoline tax scam. The Mafia realized that every gallon of gasoline sold in America came with taxes, money that was supposed to go to the government. But what if they collected those taxes at the pump and never paid them back? Mobsters set up fake companies, sold millions of gallons of gasoline, charged customers the full price, and pocketed the tax money. Within months, they were making millions. Within years, billions. The scam was so massive that at one point the Mafia was stealing from the government in gasoline taxes more than some states collected in income tax. But here's the shocking twist. The scam only collapsed when one mobster betrayed his own family, leaking the details to federal agents. By the end of it all, the Mafia had shown the world that crime wasn't just about guns or violence. It was about brains, patience, and scams so clever that ordinary people never even realized they were part of the game. From fake diners to pizza heroin, from Wall Street fraud to construction rackets, and finally, robbing the government blind. These 5 scams didn't just make the Mafia rich, they made them untouchable. And here's the final question. If they pulled this off in the 20th century, with no internet, no digital banking, and far fewer tools, imagine what kind of scams they could be running right now, in a world where movie moves at the speed of light. If you found this story insane, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe now, because the Mafia's darkest secrets are only just beginning to surface.